We have a long history on what drives us of talking about hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cells. And we're pretty much
laughing about hydrogen.
Yeah. We've spent probably an inordinate amount of time over the years laughing about hydrogen and making unicorn fart jokes and all of that. And I still am convinced that right now, at least, hydrogen is not necessarily a path that we should spend a lot of time and resources on. That said, a very interesting article in The Drive by Bertel Schmidt, who interviewed Professor Katsuhiko Hirose. He is in charge of Toyota's fuel cell development. And you're going to go, oh, God, of course he is, right? Who else would be pushing fuel cells? I mean, if Elon Musk can call them fuel cells, then they must be stupid. The other thing that we have said on this show repeatedly, though, is that there are some uses that fuel cells are really good for. It's not bad technology.
Yeah.
It's just space shuttle. Sure.
Yeah, spacecraft. Yeah.
So the base question is still, where's the hydrogen coming from?
That's the most important one.
And the secondary to that, though, has been that the cost of fuel cells have been so extreme. Toyota's only fuel cell vehicle right now, the Mirai, the first generation Mirai, is a $55,000 car. That's expensive. That's not a mainstream automobile, nor have they intended to produce it in numbers like that. That said, the interesting part of this interview was that Toyota sees the fuel cell cost. The takeaway here is Professor Hirose says that within 10, maybe 15, 20 years, he sees fuel cell vehicles costing the same as a current Corolla. In other words, it's not something that costs you a significant amount more. Where I'm going with this is, I have to give Bertel Schmidt credit. I read this, and I'm having other conversations. I want to say coming up, there's a gentleman named Matthew Klippenstein who has done a lot of work. We've quoted him. He used to do the Canada sales number for, was it Clean Technica or was it Inside EVs? Anybody?
I
think it was Inside.
It was Inside, yeah. Anyway, Matthew is a fuel cell engineer, and Matthew and I are going to sit down, and he's going to talk to me, educate me a little bit about why hydrogen might make a little more sense than it used to.
I mean, the technology is awesome. Just make it affordable and put in the filling stations, and that's what the problem is.
Right. No one's built the infrastructure, and the question of where the hydrogen comes from right now is still pretty bad.
How about just put a funnel on your ass and eat at Taco Bell and charge your car that way?
Got the show title.
All right. It's not unicorn farts.
Well, that's
it's
methane,
Taco
but
Bell
it's kind
farts.
of a cousin of hydrogen, right?
And that is one of the things. Using electrolysis of methane, you can strip the hydrogen atom molecule off of the so you could do that.
If something goes awry, it's going to be a real backfire.
It could be. So
exactly.
I got to get out of this topic.
I had the opportunity to drive the FCX Clarity, the burgundy one, and that car was a blast to drive. Like we've been saying, if it's sourced properly and if the thing doesn't cost too much, then it's not a terrible solution.
All I'm saying is I am here. I am admitting, not that I was wrong. I was right in the past, and I'm still right. Yeah. But I do think that maybe we might finally be on the edge of developing some technology that will help hydrogen make sense. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
That's what we're doing.
And as is mentioned in the Drive article, he's talking about, because we talked about the land mover, the mining truck that regened going down the hill. And in the article here, he mentions the what is it, Hirose mentions, he says, a battery electric 40-ton truck with 500 kilometers range would need 8 tons of battery. Mm-hmm. He says, if you want to transport goods, not a huge battery. And that is one thing that we often ignore when we talk about transportation and moving things and the force of moving objects. When you're sitting in the car alone, your engine, your motor, whatever the source is, it's moving a 2-ton vehicle plus you. I mean, you're like less than 1%. So when here you're talking about a transportation truck and shipping goods, you want to ship more goods than battery. So he uses that as an example. Like Russell said, there are applications for hydrogen. Hydrogen can give you the range and is a lot lighter than the batteries. In that application, hydrogen is a viable solution. So again, it's like Russell said, we're down on hydrogen, but we're down on hydrogen for passenger cars because of the infrastructure and the refueling and where it's coming from and how it's being used. But there are good uses for hydrogen.
I mean, if you could do hydrogen electric semi trucks and have hydrogen fueling stations at all the truck stops, that could work, for example.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's $1 gazillion to build the fueling stations. So.
Right.
And that's something that one of the trucking new companies, Nikola, is actually proposing, hydrogen semi trucks.
Right.
I mean, if they can get the funding and then actually get them executed, as far as not to execute the people, but actually get the stations in the ground, that could be viable.
And they could target certain routes, like I-95, build enough stations to go up and down I-95, I-5 in the west, where all the traffic is.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Tony, you had a good point about using the fuel just to carry the fuel. Like I heard once, like a 747 airplane back in the day took 20% of its fuel just to get the rest of the fuel off the ground on takeoff. So they had to calculate how much they're going, and obviously you don't want to take more fuel than you need because you're going to waste that fuel just carrying the fuel, but you don't want to shortchange yourself because then you crash. So, but that's 20% of your tank is gone in the first mile, which sucks.